I am Tamar Ish-Shalom, and this is Jewish Crossroads. My guest today is Yair Lapid, the chairman of the Yesh Atid party and currently Israel's leader of the opposition. A former journalist, author, and television anchor, he entered politics in 2012 and quickly rose to prominence as a centrist voice. Lapid has held several key positions, including Minister of Finance, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and for a brief period in 2022, Prime Minister of Israel. Shalom, Mr. Lapid.
Shalom, Tamar.
Let's start with the obvious, as we're recording this conversation a few days after Mamdani's victory. Do you think that Jews who voted for Mamdani are stupid, as President Trump said?
Well, this is not the way I would have framed it. I was worried about this, and I don't know what was more worrisome, the fact that they voted for him in spite of the fact that he's an Islamist or because of the fact that he's a socialist. But I was worried, or I still am, about Mamdani because it was interesting. I was following this, of course, and here's the guy, a young man who's running on a platform of affordable housing and free buses and community grocery shops. And it's not that he's interested in geopolitics. He didn't speak about women's rights in Iran. He didn't speak about the Uyghurs in China. He didn't speak about the hunger in Sudan, by the way, a much larger tragedy than the one occurred here in Israel and Gaza. But he was really, really persistent about talking about what is happening in Israel. So this is, it's not that he's a humanitarian or somebody who's really preoccupied with geopolitical problems. He was just focused on us, and therefore, we have a name for people who are focused on the Jews and what the Jews are doing, and therefore I was worried about the fact that he was elected and about the way he was campaigning about Israel and the Jews.
What is the name we have for that, Mr. Lapid?
Well, I tell you something. I was one of the people here who said we cannot call everyone who criticizes us an anti-Semite. Some of the people who had criticism over the government, over Israel, over the way the war was conducted, are true friends of Israel. And I thought it was an easy shot on our government's side to call anti-Semites to everyone who has something to say. So I'm careful about this. Then again, you know, when I was foreign minister, I was pushing very hard the acceptance of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. And part of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism is people who are too focused on Israel. People who has a double standard to Israel and other countries. People who are talking constantly about the suffering in Gaza and doesn't say a word about the fact that 500,000 children are in the danger of famine in Sudan. So double standard is part of the criterias of what is an anti-Semite.
So Mamdani ticks all the boxes of an anti-Semite?
I don't want this to be the headline, Lapid calling Mamdani an anti-Semite, so I'm just going to leave it for the better judgment of the people who are watching us.
We understood the answer. How much do you think the war, the past 2 years, played a role in this drift away from Israel among young progressive Jews? Again, the best poll, the most important poll, estimated that 16% of Jews in New York will vote for Mamdani, and eventually it was nearly a third.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course it has to do with it. I mean, in the last 3 years, it happened before, but more so in the last 3 years, there's a very weird coalition of voices against Israel. We call it the red, white, green coalition, meaning the red is the radical left, the white is the radical right, and the green is the radical Islam. So these are people who disagree on everything except from about Israel, which means that there is old demons and new demons who are now combining in the attack of Israel. Now, we have to remember that the Israeli government didn't exactly help. The fact that ministers were saying things like we need to nuke Gaza with the 2.2 million people over there. The fact that the ministers have said, Minister Smotrich, for example, who said, there are circumstances in which starving people is okay. which is against Jewish morals or the foundations of Israel. And I think more than everything, the fact that the Israeli government lacked the basic empathy that will enable them to say, listen, this is a war that was forced upon us, this is a terrible war, and this is also a very complicated war in the most dense populated area in the world, against an enemy that is so monstrous that he's using his own people as human shields. But then again, we are sorry where children are dying, because children are not supposed to die in grown-ups' wars, and because the loss of life of the innocent is always tragic, and us as Jews understand it more than most. And I have no idea why is it, or I have an idea and it doesn't make any sense to me, why is it that the Israeli government was reluctant of just expressing empathy to people who are suffering. And this is part of this unbelievable wave of hatred that has was created against Israel in the past couple of years.
And, you know, New York isn't America, although I think that many Israeli tourists feel that New York is America. But at the same time, it seems that figures like Mamdani, like AOC, they are the fresh new face of the future of the Democratic Party. Now, obviously, that's very, very different than Clinton, than Biden, than Obama. And yes, right now there's a Republican president in the White House that's hugely popular in Israel. But looking ahead, how should Israel prepare for these deep political shifts in America?
Part of the wrongdoings of the current government, and you're not expecting me to protect them because, you know, I am the opposition or the leader of the opposition, is the fact they have related themselves completely, first with the Republican Party, then actually with a certain wave within the Republican Party, so somewhere in between the Trump people, the MAGA people, and the evangelists, and lost the bipartisan stature that Israel always had, and that is part not only of the legacy of the relationship, but also of our national security. This is dangerous. Israel need to regain our bipartisan stature in order to maintain not only the relations, but also the strategic alliance for years to come. It's too easy for the current government to say, okay, we're just going to glue ourselves into President Trump. We have friends there. We know a lot of people there. And we're going to ignore what is happening both on the right side of the map, people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and others, and also in the Democratic Party that is, I mean, Israeli friends within the Democratic Party are now desperate. And a lot of mistakes were made in the United States and over here, and we need to repair. Now, Israel basically needs to start a healing process that has to do with a lot of things that are happening here, but part of it is rebuilding and healing and repairing the relationship with the Democrats, with the Republicans, with the Jewish communities, and go back to the foundations or the roots of this friendship.
You mentioned Tucker Carlson, and obviously the challenge is wider than just the Democrats. I mean, on the American right now, especially among isolationists, there's growing criticism of the U.S.-Israel alliance and even openly anti-Semitic voices. How concerned are you by the possibility that eventually Trump might be influenced by those trends or events in 2028?
Well, you know, people need to remember this. They know this, but you don't always remember it, especially from afar. Politicians tend to listen very carefully to their constituencies. And if the constituency is now moving against Israel, eventually it will have an influence on the politicians. We saw this in Europe. Right-wing governments, left-wing governments, when the anti-Israeli voices became prominent, politicians followed. And I don't think President Trump is going to turn on Israel. He's a true friend. He's got this ability that to me is interesting to watch and unbelievable in the same time, to say, I don't care what people say, I'm just going to go with whatever it is that I believe in or think is right, and they're going to follow, which is in ways the definition of leadership. But if you look at the next generation, I think J.D. Vance is a true friend of Israel, but I don't think he cares as much as a president his daughter has converted to Judaism, or he's part of, or grew up in New York, which is still the largest Jewish city in the world. So the constituencies and the traditions are not necessarily moving our way, and the fact that we don't have a real policy here, or the government doesn't have a real policy of repairing this, working long term, making sure people understand what is it that we're doing, and for the love of God, making sure that ministers within the government shut up instead of saying horrible things on a daily basis, is working against us.
Well, that leads me to the next question. I mean, so if we look a few years ahead, do you think that the U.S.-Israel relationship will still be what every American ambassador used to call unshakable and unbreakable? Because it seems that times they are changing, as Bob Dylan put it.
Yeah, well, times are changing by definition, and missing the good old days is just something we all do, and they weren't always that good, and besides, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, the world is changing, politics is changing, social networks, of course, changed everything, and we need to follow those changes instead of just mourn the fact that things have changed. I think the friendship is there. I think the right Israeli government with the right attitude can help a lot. I think we need to understand that the dialogue is going to be based on other issues as well. But I think there is an inherent sympathy towards Israel within the American society that is there, but nobody was talking to it for a very long time in a smart way. And there's something else. The late Ariel Sharon used to say that the Israeli prime minister is also the prime minister, that Israel is also the capital of the Jewish world. It's not only the Jewish country, but also the capital of the Jewish world. It's a way of thinking. It's taking responsibility over the relationship with the diaspora, with the Americans, with the political system, being part of the textbook. And this doesn't happen right now. Nobody seemed to care in the current government.
What do you think about the way this government is handling the relationship with American Jewry? And if you were now in power, what would you do differently?
Almost everything. I mean, obviously there is a relationship between the president and the prime minister that is working for both of them. But this is not a relationship between countries. This is, I mean, they get along, it's a good thing. I congratulate the Prime Minister for building this relationship, but this is not systematic, this is not a policy, this is just a relationship. And this is not even following the shift within the American administration of how they do business. This is a very, very different administration in the United States than anything we saw beforehand. And right now, within our government or within the Israeli government, it's not mine, nobody's doing the grassroots work that needs to be done within the Republican Party, within the House, within Senate. You know, all those boring things you need to do in order to maintain a relationship. And we're going to pay a price. Now, it's reversible. We can still rehabilitate the relationship to the even a better place, but somebody needs to wake up in the morning and tell himself, okay, this is my job, this is what I do. It's not just the photo op, it's not just the press conference in the White House, It is something more thorough and fundamental and consistent.
You know that around 70% of American Jews voted for Harris, while Trump's popularity in Israel, especially after the recent deal, is through the roof. There's a huge political gap between Jews in Israel and Jews in America. How do you see that gap and its implications?
Well, American Jews are not only Jews, they're also Americans. Their views, this is a very liberal community, and very different from Israel. Just an example, the biggest community, religious community in the United States, of course, is Reform Jews. Here it's the Orthodox. So it's very different. And they vote, I think, first and foremost as Americans, and then as Jews. There is a relationship. This is part of what interests them. This is part of the reason to be. But on the other hand, they voted for what they thought is best for America, for the economy, for liberal values in many cases. So I wouldn't. And the fact, on the other hand, the fact that President Trump is so popular here is because he is committed to Israel. I mean, the fact that we were just together in Knesset a month ago, he was as friendly as it comes. It was very obvious he felt comfortable in Israel. In the balcony in the Knesset, there were Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, his team that is also very committed. So it was very obvious this is something personal. He's a guy from New York. He's a real estate guy from New York. Real estate guys from New York understand how Jewish communities works and think, and it was very obvious and very friendly and warm. And this warmth got through to the Israeli people, not to mention the fact that he managed to do what our government didn't, which is to stop a terrible war that was going nowhere.
In the long run, when you see, the Jewish community here in the U.S., a very liberal community, while Israel is becoming more conservative in the past decade or two, are you concerned by that gap? I mean, that's beyond Trump.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure about the definition of Israel becoming more conservative. I think there was a black backlash of the October 7th, with Israel becoming more nationalist in ways, but this goes back and forth. And the real answer is, I am not a commentator on this. I think what we need to do is not to just look at reality, but to change it. What needs to be changed is Israel's ability to talk, to have a dialogue with Republicans and Democrats alike, to regain our bipartisan stature, to work with our American friends from both sides of the aisle in order to change what is going on right now. The numbers that I'm seeing, like the numbers you're seeing, are of course appalling. But you know what? When numbers are changing very fast to one side, they can always swing back. I don't think this is already beyond repair. We are not beyond the point of no return. I think there was a huge change in the last couple of years, but if something happens that quickly, then it can be reversed. I don't know if as quickly, but almost as quickly. But we need to work on this, and this is what I intend to do, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm committed to. So I'm not a bystander on the question that you've asked.
You're a stakeholder. Were you surprised by the huge wave of anti-Semitism that swept across the U.S. after October 7th and is still with us?
Yes and no. I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor, and my father used to, when we were kids, my dad used to say, you know who is an anti-Semite? And we used to say, who? And he said, anyone who's not Jewish. And we said, Dad, this is terrible. How can you say such a thing? But growing up with his story, I always knew or felt that the chance of anti-Semitism, an anti-Semitic comeback is possible. And of course, the guilt that the world has felt after the Holocaust has became more and more vague as the years go by. We are now on the third or fourth generation since the Holocaust, so people don't feel anymore that the pain that their parents, or the sympathy that their parents felt. So on this, I felt that it wasn't inevitable, but it could have happened. On the other hand, when I'm looking at this, it also has to do with the way it was mishandled by us, by Israel, and therefore it can be reversed. I truly believe that. It's not something I'm saying to comfort you or your listeners and viewers. It is something I strongly feel about. We need to have this dialogue. We need to be out there talking to people and explaining to them what really happened on October 7th, what really Israel is about. And also, and this has to do with my side of the ocean, we need to recreate a better Israel. More values based, more tolerant, less militant, and it just has to do with the kind of country we're going to be. Will also influence, of course, the kind of dialogue we're going to have with the American people.
And only about hasbara, the PR.
I didn't want to use the word hasbara because it is not hasbara. The government keeps saying it's the hasbara. It's not the hasbara. It's the way you guys behave and the things you don't do. It's not, again, when ministers are talking about, glowing about the concept of starvation, there's no hasbara on earth that is going to help them or us. It is about policy, it is about the kind of country we are, it is about how are we going to handle the relationship.
Given the rise of anti-Semitism, do you think that Jews should be thinking more seriously about Aliyah, about moving to Israel?
I think that every Jew should live in Israel. I think we came back after 2,000 years to a homeland, and I think this is the place for everyone. So it's not because of what happened in the last 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. It's home here, and now I understand the American Jewry. Jews in America are probably the most successful group of people in the history of humanity. There are Wall Street, there are Hollywood, there are writers, there are artists, there are fashion designers. They have shaped the world because, they were such a huge part of the creation of the internet and social media. So this is the most successful group on earth, and this is quite complicated to tell the most successful group on earth. You have to move. But to me, as a Zionist, it's the question has no merit because, yes, of course, every Jew should live here.
That's interesting, I must say, because I'm a Zionist, but I think diaspora is important as well, as a balance, as influence. But anyway, what we saw in the past 2 years is just how much what happens in Israel affects Jews everywhere, whether you like it or not. What responsibility do you think Israel has for the safety and well-being of Jews in the diaspora? Because they're staying there, most of them.
I don't have enough words to express how strongly I feel about the responsibility we have for Jews in the diaspora. When there was hunger and war in Ethiopia, Israeli military airplanes went there to bring them here. Because if there's one hungry Jew, one Jew in danger in Ukraine or in Sudan or in wherever, then he's our responsibility. This is part of what is so amazing in the Jewish spirit, that we feel responsible for each other. If you're outside your house on Seder night in Passover and you see a Jew is by himself, you say, "Come on over. I have no idea who you are, but I'm responsible to you." This is part of the beauty of being Jewish. My late father, for some reason I'm mentioning it now for the second time. He told me while he was in Romania in a little village, and a Jew came to him and said, we need one Jew for a minyan. We are 9, we need 10. Can you come over for the prayer? And he went. And I said, Dad, why did you go? You're a total atheist. And he said, because the God I do not believe in is Jewish. We are part of something. We have, people all over the world spend a lifetime trying to be part of something. I don't know. They wear blue bandanas and they kill people who wear red bandanas just to say that, they go for their life for 50 years to the same pub just because the bartender remembers their name. We have that as a birthright, this sense of belonging. And this sense of belonging is crossing the oceans, and I feel responsible for every Jew on earth, and I think the state of Israel should feel responsible and sometimes behave accordingly, meaning being more restrained and less political and disappointing your base, political base. I want to jump in on
that point. Let's be concrete. Let's say this past summer, okay, the cabinet is sitting and it needs to decide what's the next step in the war. Should the effect of this war on American Jewry, on diaspora Jews, be considered as one of the components of, the cabinet's discussion?
Of course, as long as it doesn't endanger a single Jew. But yes, because you know what? On the long term, this is also Israeli security. Part of Israel's, we've talked beforehand about the kind of relations, what used to be known as the special relationship. Part of the special relationship is our ability to talk to the diaspora. So it goes both ways. Now, I'm not talking protocols of the elderly of Zion kind of influence. I'm talking about the guy who picks up the phone and calls his congress member and says, you know what, I really care about the people of Israel because I'm Jewish. It goes both ways. We have to think about the diaspora. The diaspora needs to think about us. We are together in this. So yes, when there's a cabinet meeting, you have to also think about the relationship with the American administration and with the diaspora, and what kind of influence it's going to have on them.
By the way, there was a very interesting survey of the JPPI recently that asked American Jews what do they think about it, and they were split half-half between the ones who thought that yes, Israel should think how it affects American Jews, and the other half who thought no, only Israeli security should be considered. But it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think it's interlinked. I think it cannot be separate. The question is artificial. It's the same thing. We have to think about the diaspora. The diaspora has to think about us because we are together in this, whether we like it or not. And we do.
And because of that, American Jews played a huge role during the war, which was truly moving as Israelis. The donations, organizations, showing up for Israel, for the hostages, they really care deeply about Israel's future as a Jewish democratic state. Would you, as the head of the opposition, want to see them be also part of the conversation about the future of Israeli democracy? Or is that very heated discussion something that should stay inside the Israeli family?
No, in every meeting I had with the American Jewry and with American communities, I told them, get involved. This is, friendship, family ties, the destiny we share is not one-sided. If you're family, there's the biggest Jewish tradition or establishment is the Shabbat dinner. And in Shabbat dinner, everybody talks. So we care about them, they care about us, and when you care about somebody, speak your mind. So I kept telling them, I'm interested in what you have to say about the democratic crisis we have in Israel, and it is important to me to listen. I might do what you say, I might not. It's fine, but this not having a discussion on something that is that crucial to our future, it doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, I really want to hear American Jews talking about the democratic crisis in Israel. And the same way, listen, we have started this conversation. You asked me about American politics. You asked me about Mamdani. Here I am sitting in my house in Tel Aviv talking about American politics because it has to do with the Jews in New York. So this is the way it should be. It should be an open conversation. This is how families function. Even, I mean, at least functional families, and the Jews are a functional family.
Even if sometimes we're dysfunctional.
Yes, I know.
As we're heading towards the end of our conversation, I would like to ask you a personal question. How would you define your Jewish identity? And did that identity, your Jewish identity or Israeli identity, change, or the way that you perceive it changed since October 7th?
Not really. I don't think there's a way of separating my Israeli identity and my Jewish identity. It's the same thing. My Israeli identity is the result of my Jewish identity. I am here because of the Bible. Ben-Gurion used to say the Bible is our mandate over the state of Israel. I'm here because, I'm driving, I live in Tel Aviv, and I'm going 3 times a week at least to Jerusalem, to the Knesset, and I'm driving on the same route where King Saul took his father's donkeys in one of the weirdest searches in the history of humankind. So I have no way of differentiating my Judaism and my Israelism. It's the same thing to me, and it's based on the Bible, and it's based on the best story ever told in the history of humankind.
We've reached our last part of our conversation, our Jewish Crossroad questionnaire, 5 quick and fun questions. Are you ready, Mr. Lapid?
A bit worried. Yeah.
Go ahead. If you succeeded with Mamdani, you'll do well with 5 fun questions.
Go ahead.
What's your earliest Jewish memory?
My grandfather's fingers flipping the pages of the Siddur. My grandpa had very long, beautiful fingers, and he used to. I remember myself. I was probably 3 years old, looking from down, looking up at him when he flipped the pages, reading the Siddur.
If you could meet any Jewish figure from history, ancient or modern, who would it be and why?
Moses. I wrote about him quite a bit. He was he had with God a relationship like no others. It was a really father-son relationship. He was a rebel, and then he was a leader. He was conflicting. I mean, it wasn't like he was. Some of his predecessors were very sure of themselves. He wasn't. So he was interesting, and I want to tell him, listen, I know you are really, really disappointed because you were not allowed to enter the promised land. I live here. Let me tell you, you missed, but not that much.
What is your favorite or most meaningful Jewish tradition?
Favorite? Well, the Shabbat dinner. I mean, when the family comes together, we do the kiddush, and then everybody tells what happened this week, and so to me, it's this combination of tradition and family that is very, very Jewish.
If you could jump 100 years into the future, what would you hope to see for the Jewish people?
A peaceful Israel. Israel that lives in peace with its neighbor. If Israel will live in peace with its neighbors, it will be the most unbelievable place on earth. We have the energy, we have the smartness, we have the kind of entrepreneurship that is rocking the world. I'm telling you, a peaceful Israel is my dream.
What's one Jewish word, it could be in Hebrew, English, Arabic, Yiddish, whatever you want, that feels particularly meaningful to you right now?
Oy ishtinem. It is Hungarian. It is "Oh God" in Hungarian, but it is not "Oh God" in a man. It goes with everything. It's my family is Hungarian. We are Hungarian Jews. So Oy ishtinem. It can be my son is really irritating. It can be I had a fight with my wife. It can be I just won $1 million, and it can be I want to win the election. All in Oy Ishtenem. So every Hungarian knows this. So this is my Jewish word.
Oy Ishtanem, and you do want to win the elections. Mr. Yair Lapid, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you, Tamar.
That's it for this episode of Jewish Crossroads. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to write to us at jewishcrossroadspod@gmail.com. Thank you to Tomer Atzabi Bar, who edited this chapter. We'll see you next time, same place, same journey, with a new voice. See you soon.